Have a gentleman here. You can interview him personally, but we have a person in the name of Mr. Russ Pickron. Any of you who've been on planet Earth recently over the past month or so, you know of Mr. Russ Pickron. He's with Georgia Transparency. The last time we met here, we talked about law enforcement and the school system imploding. Much of the work that was related to that press conference was done by Mr. Russ Pickron. Since that time, guess what? We were right. 4 or so LaGrange police officers resigned in lieu of probably being fired for use of anabolic steroids. There's another officer that we also anticipate being terminated as well from the LaGrange Police Department. This is an important press conference for the students and parents of LaGrange here, and without any further delay, I'm going to give you now the president of the NAACP, Mr. Mike Meredith. Mr. Meredith.
All right, good morning. Thank you very much. Can y'all hear me? Okay. Before we get started this morning, I want to take a moment of silence for Mr. Willie Cofield. He passed yesterday afternoon, excuse me. So if we could take a moment of silence for Mr. Willie Cofield. He was a great leader in this community, involved in a lot of the issues in our community to provide a better quality of life for our citizens. So let's take a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. All right, basically, Dr. Dodds pretty much did the press conference, but I'll try to fill in where he left off. But the Troup County NAACP on March the 30th held a press conference to expose an emergency and crisis in our community. The chapter requested that Governor Brian Kemp should use the power of the state of Georgia to investigate what we believe to be the implosion of the Troup County school system and the LaGrange Police Department, which has resulted in the miseducation of our children and the inability of our residents to feel protected and served. Since our press conference, several police officers hastily resigned from their jobs, a few due to allegedly, as Dr. Dow stated, the use of anabolic steroids. The new police chief appears to have taken the position of holding these officers accountable to the community which they serve. His job is not complete, though. The female officer, who is alleged to have paraded around nude at a retreat for the supervisory police officer, should also be terminated or at a minimum seriously disciplined. This does not appear to be the case with the Troup County school system. Therefore, the Troup County NAACP Branch Unit 5237 is asking for the resignation of the superintendent, Brian Shoemake. Our position is predicated on the following. Point 1, for the 2023 school year, there are 19 public schools serving a little over 12,000 students in Troup County School District. The district's average testing rank is 4 out of 10, which is below 50% of the public schools in Georgia. Point number 2, public schools in Troup County School District have an average math proficiency score of 26% versus the Georgia public school average of 35%, and a reading proficiency score of 29% versus a 39% statewide average. Point number 3, horrible discipline practice which negatively impacts students of color. Our office is regularly called upon by black parents to intervene in preventing the school system from ruining the lives of their children. Draconian punishment of our children appears to be a major indication of success rather than academic achievement. Point number 4. History of email especially sent to white school board members only. One that exposed a contractor who is alleged to have not been the qualified low bidder, but was approved by the Troup County School Board of Education. The contractor is alleged to have cost the school system an additional $15 million to the taxpayers. In any other school system, this would have been possibly resulted into a major legal repercussion. As a point of reference, parents who are financially able avoid the travails of sending their children to Troup County schools and instead enroll them in Hearn County School and private academies. This begs the question, what is wrong with our Troup County schools?
Amen.
It is because of this problem listed herein that the superintendent Brian Shoemaker should resign as the leader of Troup County school system. This press release is also being forwarded to the governor of the state of Georgia. The NAACP, Troup County NAACP, is pleading with him to use the power of the state of Georgia to save the lives of our precious children in the Troup County school system. I now open up the floor for questions. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Because it's kind of hard. I'm just going to speak up, but you can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Can y'all hear? Yeah. Okay.
My question is, I know the superintendent, Mr. Schumott, started July of 2019. What would you say to people who say he hasn't really had as much time to make improvements, given the fact that we're coming out of COVID and this last year has kind of been the first real full normal school year?
You want to take that?
Absolutely. I'm a career educator. I was one of those persons who helped to purge the Atlanta school system of the infamous Beverly Hall and her cheating scandal there. I can say with absolute certainty the superintendent has had enough time to turn this system around. We had another superintendent here who was given enough time and he took the school system down to a grade of D. He was given enough time. You know who suffers? Poor whites and black kids in this city suffer. And as the president said, whether they send their kids, they send them to Hearn County. I don't have anything against Hearn County, but we have all of this money here in Troup County. We have all of these educators. 2 years would be quite a lot, enough. If you look at the superintendent in Houston, Texas, I used to teach at a university out there. The state of Texas has taken over the school system there. When you look at the old No Child Left Behind Act, were we to still be operating under the old No Child Left Behind Act, the state would have been forced to take over this school system. When you look at the data, Glenn Dowell, the NAACP didn't say it, from the Georgia Department of Education, the National Center for Education 2023 says emphatically this school system is at the bottom 50% here in the state of Georgia. Guess what? We have 19 schools. 5 of them are graded D, 2 of them are graded F. And let me tell you what giving time is doing. If you say give this superintendent time, there's a school here, brand new school, new mortar, the whole thing. That school is Clearview Elementary. It's been graded F consecutively. At a minimum, the superintendent should have had staff development in process there at that school. What do people do? The whites who can afford it, they send their kids to her county schools. I like LaGrange. I love LaGrange. I love the darn police department that was here. But I don't want police officers selling and using drugs. I don't want police officers running around nude. So back to education, the superintendent has had well enough, a long time to turn this system around. Let him go somewhere else and spend some time doing that. And you may want to look up something as it relates to the time the superintendents have in doing their work, and especially in metropolitan Atlanta. The superintendent has had enough time. When you look at the grades that we've had, and let me tell you something else, which is another reason he had to go. Kanaya, come up, please. And that's why we have this lawyer. Here's a young lady, and she was 100% wrong. She threw a phone at a student, male student, who inappropriately touched her. Inappropriately touched her. It mistakenly hit a teacher. Mistakenly hit a teacher. So the teacher understood that, and when it came to the tribunal, the teacher essentially stood up for her. What does the system do? They expel this child. She can't go to any Georgia school here. And she's an honor student. She's a smart student. Okay?
And an athlete.
And an athlete. And here's the attorney for her. Miss Snelling. Someone see Miss Snelling. Come on out. Why must he go? Draconian measures related to disciplining our minority children. This lady's grandchild did something that was not right in a classroom. She was suspended for it and told to go to an alternative school. And in the 10th grade year, for her 11th grade year, she was supposed to go to an alternative school. Okay? So, what Miss Snelling's daughter did for her child was to virtually put her in the alternative school, satisfying that request. But for the junior year, she put the child in a private school. Okay? Now, let's take for instance, the child could have, let's say, gone to Russia. Parents could have moved to Russia. So if she comes back, does she still have to go through the alternative school? So she comes back. She now is in the 12th grade. She is a 4.0 student. A 4.0 student. And basketball recruiters are recruiting her from around the country. What does this draconian superintendent do? He says, you need to start. Okay. Right. So what does the superintendent do? He decides she cannot attend the Troup County school system. Here's a young lady, already suffered enough, and she has been punished. You're talking about a person who's now a senior, who cannot attend another school, ruining her future, even though she contributed to it some. She's an athlete, 4.0 student, and for something silly, 10th grade that she did, you're gonna make sure that she's banished from the school system? Something is inherently wrong with that. The superintendent has had enough time. Okay?
Any more questions?
So it's been 98 days since the last press conference.
Yes.
What should have happened in 98 days? Because I asked you specifically, are you asking for Dr. Shoemaker's resignation? And both you and Mike both said no, 98 days ago.
Right.
So in 98 days, what should have happened so that this would not be happening?
And I remember that conversation. One of the things that happened is that I got data that was for 2023. National Centers for Education, Georgia Department of Education. That's what happened. And let me tell you what didn't happen. What didn't happen, and you haven't heard of it either in the media here in LaGrange. The superintendent hasn't done anything with respect to staff development. When you look at how to change such performance in a school system, what you do is you use your staff development department. And since you have students, we're at the bottom 50% here in the state of Georgia. I think we are way on the lower scale when it comes to our measurements with other schools. But 26% performance in math and 29% performance in reading. Something is wrong with that. So yes, he's had enough time. And what has happened since then is that we have new data that validates that he should have been gone a long time ago. Okay?
Any more
Questions?
questions?
Do you have statistics, like how many students from Troup County go to Hurt County schools?
I don't know that, but I guarantee you probably some of them are illegally going. My name is Glenn Dowell, D-O-W-E-L-L. I'm the education chair for the NAACP. Okay. Okay.
So one of the examples you made just now was about her throwing
Yes.
a phone at a student, and the phone accidentally went past the student and hit a teacher, and she got expelled.
Yes.
If that was in another school district, she would still get expelled.
Yeah.
So with some of the examples you're giving where these are behavioral issues, why is it different? Why are you calling it out here where it would be similar to something like that would happen in another school district?
Two people will answer that for you. Number one, you're 100% wrong if a teacher has said it was a mistake. I'm an educator, a 30-year plus educator. You're 100% wrong. If the student had apologized and a tribunal had said we wanted a 10-day suspension for that, that's what would have taken place. You're 100% wrong.
I can address that. We looked at we did some research. It's publicly available on the Board of Education website. You can go in and read their opinions, for lack of a better term. What they did to Ms. Williams was they expelled her for the duration of her high school career. She's a 9th grader, so she can never come back to Troup County Schools as it stands now. The research, can you hear me? The research that we conducted showed that is disproportionate to other punishment meted out for even intentional acts of violence against students. A 3.5-year expulsion to never be allowed to participate in anything in the public schools in terms of extracurricular activities, athletics, any of that is just excessive. The tribunal who heard the case found her not guilty of intentionally harming a teacher. The teacher testified under oath that the student did not intentionally harm her. The principal and the Board of Education conducted a de novo review. They overturned the factual findings of the tribunal. They disregarded the teacher's testimony. They disregarded what the actual rule violations that were charged were, and came to their own conclusion and expelled her for 3.5 years. Not only is it just on its face disproportionate for an accident, it is not in line with other punishment meted out by other school districts within the state, according to the research we did, for acts that are even intentional. And it begs the question is, why are they singling out this young lady?
Do you think race plays a part in anything?
Absolutely I did.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I'd have to get more data, and I haven't been able to obtain the data yet. But in terms of data of what goes on in the Troup County schools, to be able to address that more clearly. But I see nothing else. We have a white teacher who's the alleged victim. We have a white majority Board of Education, and we have a black student. And 3.5 years expulsion for an accident? I don't know another explanation. Any more questions for me?
And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit brash sometimes, so you have to excuse me for that. Are there any other questions? We will be available for any other questions after Mr. Meredith closes this out. One of the other things when Ms. Audrey mentioned about whether this was race, I have an email that any media person here today can receive that if you want to look at something racial, that was forwarded primarily to white board members of the Troup County Board of Education. It was sent out especially to them. I have a copy of that email and could give it to either one of you all. That email talked about the poor performance of the school system here It also talked about issues, since someone said something about Atlanta, Miss Audrey, you said something about Atlanta. It also talked about where contracts were bid to build 2 schools, 2 gyms. Both of those gyms had about $7.5 million in overrides, amounting to nearly $15 million in overrides for building 2 gyms. Now, would that have taken place in Atlanta or anywhere else without it being a major legal issue? Absolutely not. Mr. Merritt, if you want to close this out.
Are there any more questions? Okay, well, if that's it, we want to thank you for coming this morning. If you need any further questions or have any further questions, please forward those to Dr. Glenn Dollar, Educational Chairperson, or me, and we'll do our best to get you the answers or to answer your questions. With that said, thank you for coming. We will now, anybody else have anything else? We now adjourn. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everybody.